Hi everybody, it's Rachel and I'm going to show you how to make forest tea from some plants that you can find on Southern Vancouver Island in the forest. So we're going to make our tea out of licorice fern, blackberry leaves, and grand fir needles. So before we go out and harvest some things from the forest, these are all the things you're going to need to collect to make forest tea. So you're going to need a kettle to boil hot water. You're going to need some kind of tea steeper. So I have this one. This is from David's Tea. And also some kind of a pot or like a teapot or a mug that you can just put your steeper right in. And then when we go out into the forest, we're going to need to bring some clippers or some scissors, some gloves, and some kind of container to put the plants in. And another thing you're going to want to have with you is some kind of a plant identification guide, because there's some plants in the forest that can be confused with others, and we don't want to pick the wrong ones that could not be edible. So either have a field guide with you or someone that knows a lot about plants. And there's also lots of free online resources to identify plants. So we're going to grab our outdoor things that we need and we're going to head outside into the forest. So now we're in the forest. We're here on WSÁNEĆ and Lekwungen-speaking people's unceded territories. So we're going to keep our eyes peeled for those three ingredients we're looking for. So that was licorice fern, grand fir, and blackberry leaves specifically. So let's walk around and see if we can find those ingredients. So here is a grand fir tree, and I'll tell you how to identify it. So if you look at the leaves, you can see that they're needles and they're oriented very flat, so they don't stick out all around like other trees. And you can see that the needles are similar to a grand piano because they have one long and then one short needle, and then long, short, over and over again. And if you look underneath, there are two white lines that go down the back. So these are delicious in tea because they are actually very strong in vitamin C. And if I break off some of these and I crush them up in my fingers and smell it, what do you think it smells like?
Like oranges?
Oranges, yeah. Yeah, so it's got a really high citrus content in it. So this will be really, really good in our tea. And we can also just eat it just like this as a little snack, which I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna take some of these and put them into one of my containers because it'll be delicious in our forest tea. So this is blackberry. So there's lots of different species of blackberry in this area, but this is Himalayan blackberry, which is an introduced and invasive species. So invasive species just take over areas, and if you kind of look around me, this stuff is everywhere. So this is a good one for us to harvest because it's everywhere. And how you can identify it is kind of the size of it. They're quite big and bushy, and they also have really big thorns. So you have to be careful. They're very prickly, and because of that, I'm actually going to wear gloves for this. So I'm going to put those on. And I'm also going to use scissors to cut off the leaves because it can be a little bit tough to do that. So I'll show you. You can see here. Can you see how big these thorns are? So that's how you know it's a Himalayan blackberry. It's very aggressive. Okay, so I'm going to cut off some of these leaves. There we go. So now I'm going to put this in my little bucket. Perfect. Okay, so we have found our third ingredient, which is licorice fern, which is right here. But I'm gonna take my gloves off for this one because there's nothing that's gonna poke me. So there's lots of different types of ferns all around the world, but in this area here. So licorice fern is easy to identify because it's individual leaves. So they just have these one leaf sticking out. And usually they love maple trees. This is a maple tree. and they love moss. So usually you'll see them growing out of mossy maples or kind of the sides of rocks that are covered in moss. So it's called licorice fern, so that probably gives you an idea of what this is going to taste like. So the rhizomes, which are like the root system of these ferns, taste like licorice. And I don't really like licorice that much, but I still really like the taste of these. So I encourage you to try it even if you're opposed to what licorice tastes like. So how we're going to harvest it is we're going to follow the stem of the fern down to find the root, and then we're going to pull that out. So dig in here a bit. So if you take off all the soil and the little bits, you can see that's the rhizome there. So you clean all this off and then you have a taste, and it tastes just like licorice. So we're going to put this in our tea as well, and it gives it a really nice flavor. Okay, so we've gotten all 3 of our ingredients now, so we're ready to head back and make some tea. We are back in the kitchen, and now it's time to make our tea. So we've got all of our ingredients here. And next step, we have to put the kettle on. So while the kettle is boiling, I'm going to wash our ingredients because there's dirt and there might be some bugs on there or some other things. So I'm going to do that. All right, that's good. Okay, so now I'm going to cut up our ingredients and put them into a strainer so we can steep it in some tea. So I'm going to use scissors and just cut them up, and this will increase the surface area so there'll be more, it'll be able to steep a little bit stronger. So yeah, I'm just going to cut these up. Just watch your fingers when you're cutting. Just cut up little pieces. And for it's kind of up to you how much you want to put in of each ingredient. Maybe for the first time you can do equal parts and then see how you like it, and then you can always change it next time. For the grand fir needles, I'm just gonna rip off some from the stem, and then I'm just gonna break it up in between my fingers and put them in. I'm gonna add a bit more. Oh, it smells so good. Break that up. And then for the blackberry leaves, I'm gonna cut them up into smaller pieces, just like that. There we go. So it's all in the strainer. So I can put it in my mug so it's all ready to be steeped. And I think the kettle went off while I was doing that. So we got our hot water here. So I'm just gonna pour it right into the tea strainer. There we go. It's been 5 minutes, so I'm gonna take out the strainer and give it a taste. There's my, and yeah, it might be a bit hot, so make sure you are careful with that and blow on it to cool it down a bit. Ooh, oh, that's good. That's delicious. So yeah, you can, after you taste your tea, you can kind of see if you want to maybe add more to your steeper next time, or maybe it's too licorice-y for you, so you can use less of the licorice. So it's kind of up to you. You can play with it. I really like how mine turned out today. And yeah, I hope when you try yours out, you really enjoy it. This is a great tea because all of these plants that we used are actually evergreen, so you can harvest them year round. And they're fairly common plants as well, so you can find them pretty easily in nearby natural areas. And yeah, and it's a nice activity because it kind of inspires you to learn more about the plants in your area and to get outside into nature. So I hope you enjoyed making forest tea with me today, and I'm gonna put some resources in the link below for you to find some identification resources. So you can go out and find these plants yourself. Thank you for listening.